Hey guys, I'm so excited for this. So, we're going to be talking about what is truth, is there a God, and can I know him? What's the truth about God? And God exists. How do I know him? I'd like to start off by saying I'm a Christian. This video is not only for Christians, it's for people who are atheists, agnostics, Muslims. If you're Buddhist, if you're Mormon, if you're Christian, if you're Catholic, anything. I think this video hopefully would be helpful for you, and I ask that you give it a chance. I think it's gonna be really long, but we'll see. I'd like to start with a word of prayer and get into an outline. God, please give me wisdom with what to say. Thank you that I have this opportunity to get to speak to people. Please let any of the viewers watching, just please guide them, God. Give us all wisdom, and let me be faithful to who you are and your character. Amen. So thank you guys for coming here. 3 points I'm gonna walk through. This is my outline of right. Is there God? Can I know him? And I'm gonna end with well, my position is Christianity, but the first one is there a God? What's the evidence for God, right? Is he really obvious? Is he really clear? A lot of people think there's a God. Christians, especially, I know, we'll say it's obvious, right? It's obvious. Our scripture actually tells us that too. The Bible says that. But is it really? Is it really obvious? And for this might be leaned towards more atheists and agnostics or people trying to study apologetics, which is how to reason. It's the defense and arguments for faith. So if you're doing Christian apologetics, you're trying to defend Christianity and say, no, it actually is clear that there's a God. How do I know that? What all the evidences for it? I hope to share those with you if you've never heard them. It's not an exhaustive list by far, but I think it's a compelling argument. Then, after that, second point, we're going to get to which God. Which God? Okay, there's a God. Which one is he? Because there's so many religions out there. Then I want to end with, I think Christianity shows it best. I think it gives the best explanations. I think it has the best, most accurate view of reality and who God is from what we're going to get from our previous points. Let me get there. I'm not just saying, oh, Christianity is just true, just believe it. I believe that, but if there's atheist or agnostic or skeptic and you're in here, I really encourage you, really stick through the first section and then follow with me to the end. So let's get into it. First section, is there a God? I want us to really critically evaluate atheistic materialism, which you have different types of atheists, but something that's very common is I'm atheist. I believe there's not a God. I'm agnostic. I don't know. But this materialism worldview, which is only the physical universe exists. This causes people to completely disregard if there's a claim of God or a miracle, completely disregard it because I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that stuff. I don't believe in the spirit. All these things. I want us to really evaluate this worldview, and I have several points. And forgive me, I don't want to sound harsh, but I think atheistic materialism is lacking. And I think it's lacking in a lot of fields. I think first point, I think it's lacking in morality. I start with asking how. How do we have morals? And you can give an answer to it. An answer isn't always a sufficient reason. Just because someone can respond to something doesn't mean that that's sufficient. But you can say evolution, and it's just naturally what's most beneficial for survival, and different cultures, different areas will evolve morality differently, and this sounds compelling at first because you can say, well, look, Some things are culturally appropriate in some places than others. I would say I could agree with that. Cultures differ, but I'm not. I wouldn't be willing to say morality differs. There's some fluctuation, but morality at its core, what we're going to get into, is it's a standard. It's something that's objective, something universal, something that is just true, not true for you or true for me, but true for everyone. I want to point out that if it's cultural, and here's the thing, these might not all sound like really, really hard claims, but I want to appeal to people and their morals and their feeling of what is right and wrong, their understanding of that. And I'll be honest, this might bother you, it might not. It bothers me. If morals come from evolution, then they're kind of arbitrary in a way to me, because they could have evolved differently. It's an option. And if they're cultural, or from evolution, or for both, they're kind of relative. It's a different culture has a different morality. But if I lived in a country where murder, let's say murder, killing another person wasn't illegal, it was allowed, would it still be wrong? Now think about that. Would it be wrong? I think it would be. Now I'm trying to appeal to you. If you don't think it would be, then just hold on with me. I'll bring up other points, but I think it would be wrong. Just because everyone around me is saying that it's not doesn't mean that it's not. Majorities can be wrong. It's a healthy thing for us to be able to tell ourselves. Majorities can be wrong. And then besides, after how, I would ask why. Why should I follow morality? If it's from evolution, or if it's just an outcome of evolution, or chemical processes, or cultural, societal, just influences, why should I follow it? I think this is really hard. I think this is really hard to defend from a materialism perspective. Why should I do the right thing? C.S. Lewis, if you read Mere Christianity, you watch or listen to the audio of it, you can get on YouTube. It's really good. Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis. He goes through really thoroughly this moral kind of perspective, and you'll hear this in other places, and they'll use the word ought. Why have I ought to do one thing over the other? Why should I? And once again, we're going to get into a point. An answer isn't always sufficient. An answer isn't always a sufficient reason, just because you can reply with something. Because I can say, well, why should I follow morality if it was a product of evolution? You could say, it's the best for survival. I say, okay, well, why should I care about the survival of the species? And you might go, whoa, Matthew. Genuinely, though, think about that. Why should I? Because this is what we're trying to get at. We're trying to get at truth. Why should I care about the survival of the species? Because I know some people who only do things because they know how other people will react. They want other people to be happy or to not be angry. Why should I do that, though? Why should I change my decisions based off of other people, the impact that they have on other people? I would ask, why should I care about things that aren't for my own survival? I understand that survival of the species, naturally, you can have things that the species could carry characteristics that are more beneficial for it, right? The non-beneficial ones, it's kind of arbitrary. They'll fade away, or you'll die because of it, because they're a bad feature. Like if we all thought, killing each other is really good, and we all kill each other, and then we're gone. But really, what makes it different for me, though, Why do I care about other survival, the survival of the human race, over my own? What causes me to tell the truth instead of lie? To buy things instead of steal for them? Because I could steal things. I could go to the store, I could steal things. I would have a lot more money that way. but I don't. And morally I don't. And morally I hope you don't. But why is that? Because I lived in a time where I was taking advantage of things, of life. I saw things as means to an end for myself. And that made sense. It made sense without God. Because why don't I just do what's best for me all the time? And that's another point I want to get into, is that morality really isn't, so I just bumped my desk. Morality really isn't what's best for me. It's this internal compulsion to do something that's right instead of what's wrong. That's different. That's different. Morality is not just about the results. Think about that. If you believe it's from an evolutionary perspective, morality isn't just about the results. I think it's counterintuitive. Because if there was a baby burning in a building, the building's on fire, but I knew that, I would be compelled to go into that building and try to save that child. Is that better for the human race as a whole? It's better specifically for that human. Maybe its family. It's not good for me or my family. Then why do I do it? And if you think about this, like, there's a lot of morals, like utilitarian type things, overall good compared to overall evil. If you look at it just as life, that baby, you might say, oh, well, it's younger, and we care for things that are younger. I say, okay, but replace the baby with an old person, like an elderly person. I still feel like I would do that. I would go in there to try to save that person. Why? Because to me, morally, the life matters. Not because it's helpful for the species, but because it matters. It's a true statement. You think about stories. Great stories have someone giving the life for another, right? These oh man, that's something that's incredibly appealing to us, making sacrifices for others. That's appealing. We like that. We feel like that's right. Not under compulsion, but out of love. We care about that. I think that's interesting. C.S. Lewis, in Mere Christianity, he'll explain morals as this. He'll say, this is not an exact quote, but he'll say, how do I know what a crooked line is without first having an idea of a straight line? I think this is incredibly compelling, because everything we've talked through so far, that example, I hope it really does speak to you. Hope it's making sense. But also, we ask, morals, where does it come from? We say evolution. Well, it's like, well, how does that work? Because I have this idea of what is right and wrong. How can I look at things and say one's right or wrong without having a standard of what truly is right and wrong? Right? That's what the crooked line is. I see a crooked line, I go, oh, that's not a straight line. Well, how do I know that? I know that because I know what a straight line looks like. But how do I know what a straight line looks like? This to me gets a little tricky, because like we've shared, morals are more than just their outcomes, more than just a utilitarian. You look at the outcomes and you weigh the costs and you say, oh, this is the better option. There's something that's just true about them. Is what it feels like. I think that's really strong. I want to say materialism, atheistic materialism. Okay, I accidentally accidentally canceled my recording. So I'm gonna continue on, and hopefully I can patch this up afterwards. I think atheism is also lacking in purpose and meaning. Let me look at my points. Okay, so purpose and meaning. Why is it better that I live rather than die? This is a serious topic. If anyone out there is suffering from things like suicidal thoughts or things like that, I really want to encourage you. I think there's great meaning and purpose to life, and hopefully if you stay to the end or you look at the timestamps, you'll be able to find when I'm talking about the Christian message. There's true hope and joy in life. Life is worth living, and life is valuable. But from an atheistic perspective, I think that's hard to prove. Why is life valuable? If I'm derived from just other creatures, why are creatures or animals different? They're not really that different. It's not that hard to find people. You might know someone who cares about the planet more than humans. They'll say humans are actually a detriment to the environment and planet, just as a whole. It'd be better if there was no humans. So I have to move something on my phone. This is hard to prove. Why should I be living? I think that's hard to prove from an atheist perspective. What's the point of life? It ends. All of us are born, and then all of us die. And that's it. That's it. I think it's hard. I think it's also lacking in another point, third point. I think it's lacking in reason. I'll be honest. I'm not trying to be offensive. I really do think that it's hard to reason why there's reason in an atheistic perspective. Why should I expect the universe to have laws, rules, and consistency? Why should I? Why should I expect math equations that we discover, we don't invent, right? We discover these truths about real things in the universe. Why? Why should I expect that if it's all random? Some people don't like random. Okay, but if it's all just matter, if it all just came to be, how does that work? And then I just extend that to my brain. If everything is just chemicals, just chemical compositions, how do I know that my reasoning is even remotely accurate? How do I know anyone else's is remotely accurate? I find that hard. I think it's also lacking, this is point 4, I think, lacking in free will. Lacking in free will. It's similar to the previous point. Here, let me share this. Can I get this up? There we go. Okay. Okay, so sorry. This is a little stuttered. I'm walking right now as well, but so forgive me. Hopefully, there's not too many more interruptions. So I was talking about how things are deterministic, and wow, this is awkward. I should have looked at my notes again. Yeah, I believe we're on free will. Yeah. So there's something in computer science. I have a bachelor's in computer science. I would like to share this with you if I can. There we go. Get that back up running. There's something called finite state machines. This is a way of looking at the world and characterizing things where there are states and there are actions, and those actions take something from one state into another state. But you can summarize everything as being a series of states. And a simple example of this is, let's say we had a light switch. So we have a little light switch and we can turn it on or off. We're going to have a state here that says, hey, this is on. I'm sorry that's small. This is probably so small, actually, if you're on a mobile device or something. Let me try to make this much bigger. Much bigger. Okay. Hopefully that's good for you guys. So the light switch is on. And then sorry. How could I turn the light switch off? Well, I just flick it off. So I flip the switch, right? So if the light switch is in the on state, and then you typically draw some kind of arrow, and sorry, it's been a while since I've used this. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I'm sorry. I should know how to do this better. I'm just gonna go wah. Okay, there we go. If it's in the on state, and I want to take it off, let me just copy and paste that, make it really big. What I do is I flip the switch. So let me get this going. I flip. Wow, okay, it connected it to the arrow. That's handy. So I flip the switch. If I flip the switch, what happens? The switch goes from being on to, let me get a hold of this guy, to being off. That's how it works, right? So I'm looking at the states of the light switch, and if it's on, and I take the action, flip the switch, then it will be off. We call this deterministic, because you can always determine what the state of something will be. For instance, the simplification, if I'm in the hungry state, and I eat food, I'll be in the satiated state, the not hungry state. But you can go from one state to another, and you can also loop back on states. So for instance, let's say I started with the off state though, and I wanted to go to the on state. What would I do? I would also flip the switch. So you can actually draw an arrow going from this guy to that guy. So if I flip the switch, if I know what the state of the switch is beforehand, I know which state it will be in after. I hope this is starting to make sense. I'm saying if I know the preconditions, if I know the conditions or state of anything, and I take a specific action, I should be able to know the state of it afterwards. This is how we're able to do things like, here, I'll take this off the screen for a while. This is how we're able to do scientific experiments. If you think about this, we have different variables. We have all these things that we know factor into the final outcome. But we have independent variables and dependent variables. There's a reason we have only one variable that we change at a time. And that's because, let's say, I have 10 things that I know are affecting the outcome. If I want to see the impact that one of them has, I'll keep 9 of them the same, and I'll only change this one, and then I'll look at what the outcome is. And through that, I can determine the effect that this variable has. So this is what I mean when things are deterministic. I hope that was a good enough explanation. What I mean now then, maybe I should come back here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay, we're good. I don't even know what I just did. What I mean now, though, devoid of free will, and this actually ties into the reason explanation. If you thought the reason explanation wasn't that good, I'm sorry, but hopefully this explains it better. If I know, let's just change the names on these to make this easier. If I know, let's say, okay, this is awkward. One brain state is over here, and then the next brain state is over here, and then we have some kind of, I don't know, we'll just call it an input. We have some kind of action. Is action better? Let's do action. Less technical term. So we have some kind of action that's happening. But then this will probably lead to a different brain state. Let's give it that. Okay. Point being here, if I am just materials, if I'm just my physical body, if this is a new brain state, I'm going to say a new set of chemical reactions in my brain, a new set of states and everything, because my beliefs, my thoughts, my feelings are all just reactions happening in my brain. If that's the case, then I cannot get to this state without being in the previous state. And if I'm in this state and I know exactly what's going to happen, then I know exactly what's going to happen next. I think of this as, can I lock that one in? I think of this as some dominoes. These are very thin dominoes, so forgive me. But we're just going to draw some, we're going to say these are dominoes. Dominoes. Now, I know that this domino is not going to fall unless this one falls. But I know this one won't fall unless that one falls. And unless that one, and so forth. So we come here and we say, okay, I know if this one falls, then the next domino will fall, right? This one, it leads you to a deterministic point of saying, when people say like nature versus nurture, nature versus nurture, these types of things, people will reason sometimes, hey, you're only a byproduct of what's happened to you. The way you are is purely because of the way people have treated you and the way you were raised. Now, in a deterministic perspective, this makes sense because I know how you were, and then I know what actions were placed upon you, and that guarantees that you'll be in this new state. I know that if your parent yelled at you as a kid, and you didn't have a lot of friends, or something. I hope I'm not pointing anyone out. I'm just saying, if you struggled a lot at school, all these things, then I'll be able to knock down the last domino and say, oh, I know you'll be a criminal and a terrible person. Really? I have a question, if you believe this, a real question. Then why do we have laws that punish criminals? Why is that? Why is there justice? Why do we punish people who do wrong things, who do evil? He's a criminal. He killed someone. You say, oh, it's obvious. But if he's just a byproduct of what's happened before, what's happened to him, why is he responsible for who he is? Let's say he's not. I hope this is starting to come into picture. Where does free will and accountability exist in a world that's purely material and deterministic? Where does that have a place? Because we can go back through it. Hey, you were your parents were well off, they had money, and you had friends, and you did typically well in school, and you were naturally kind of athletic, and you just grew up in a really good environment, and and oh, you'll be a great person. Why do we reward that person? Why do we reward them? They're just a byproduct of what's happened to them. It could have happened to anyone. I think mercy, justice, fairness, accountability, and ultimately free will stem from the fact that we are not purely deterministic. Right? I feel like, I genuinely feel like I have a choice, like I have a free will, like I have a soul. That is my understanding of reality. That is how I perceive things. I just don't see how you get around that, to be honest. Maybe I should have started with this. I'm sorry if you watched the beginning and you're gone now. But for anyone who's still here, I think this is incredibly convincing. Because when you think about reasoning and you're arguing with people, what does it even mean to convince someone? Do you just mean like, oh, well, your brain state is in a place of unbelief, and I'm going to give an action, which is my argument, and then you're going to come into a place that is belief. That means I don't choose my beliefs. I'm bound to believe them. Because in this state, if you give me a good argument, or whatever the action is, right, I'm bound to believe this next thing. All of my beliefs, all of my choices are from what's happened to me. If I don't have a choice in who I am, I don't actually have a choice to change, to be better, without it kind of being outlined for me. I have to already exist with the capability to do it, like me specifically, as an individual. I have the capability to do it, and then I have the right circumstances to, so then I can be a decent person. But maybe some people actually start out different, and they actually can never be a good person, right? I really hope this free will example gets in there, because I find it incredibly convincing. I just don't see how you get around that, to be honest. All right, let's see. The next one is, all right, let me check my notes. I wanted to label one more point, which is design. This might seem a little different. I'm going to say that materialism and atheism is lacking in explaining the evidence for design. I believe that there was actually very strong evidence that the universe was designed. That was created. It came from a mind. It came from something. There's another point I don't actually have in here, but if the universe maybe... Okay, there's two things. The universe has always existed, or it began. If it always existed, I think that's actually impossible. I think it's actually impossible for the universe to have always existed. Let's actually come back here. If we clear this out here, we'll just come back up here. If we're right here, and this is the present. This is the present. Let's say this is now. And the universe has always existed, right? Which means what? Which means there's infinite time going backwards into the past, right? I have another question for you. I'll bring back the dominoes. I hope that was exciting. Those turned out kind of fun. These dominoes over here. Let me bring them up. If this domino is now, what do we know from earlier? This domino has to fall, then this one, and all the way down to the domino to the present. But what do I know? If the domino before now doesn't fall, now it can't ever happen, right? If yesterday never came, if yesterday comes, then today can come, right? But if yesterday didn't come, and the day before that didn't come, and that one, and that one, and that one, and you might say, well, Matthew, yesterday did come. That's obvious. Well, like, my objection would be if there was infinite time backwards. You just think about this. There's infinite time backwards. That means there's always another domino before this one. There's always another domino. If there isn't a domino that starts falling, none of the other dominoes can fall. If there isn't a first day, there can never be a day, is the point. And infinity is actually, logically, infinity does not appear to be able to exist in the real world. There's some examples of this. There's some fun thought examples. Let me give you one. Let's say there's a library. This box is a library, and it has books. And these are books, and it's got lots of books. And these books have pages, lots and lots of pages. This library actually, its books have so many pages that has an infinite number of pages in each one of these books. So this book has infinite pages, and that book has infinite pages, and that one, and they all have infinite pages. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Already, we'll have to start. How can there be infinite material? That already doesn't appear to be true. But let's think about this. If there was actually infinite pages in this book, then this book has just as many pages as the one next to it. There's infinite pages in the library. I take out this book. I just took out infinite pages from the library. How many are there? It's infinite. I take out infinite again. And again. I've taken infinity, an infinite number of pages out of this library multiple times, and this library still has pages in it. I think that's bizarre. We can go a step further in saying if all of these books have infinite pages, let's say that the library actually has an infinite number of books in it. Then this book has the same number of pages as all of the other books in the infinite library combined. Because it's infinite. Does that make sense? That this book with infinite pages has as many pages as all the other ones. In infinity, I'm not perfect at this. But in computer science, I took a couple calculus classes. and I'm not saying you have to be able to do that. I'm trying to appeal to common sense here. Infinity doesn't make sense. There are some things that you can kind of say are infinite, right? Eventually, Christians, we're going to say God is infinite in his wisdom and his knowledge and his power. But in the physical, right? This is what we're talking about. I'm analyzing atheistic materialism. In the physical world, infinity just does not appear to be true. Just does not appear to be possible. I think that's a substantial thing to be able to point out. And the fact that the universe either had a beginning or didn't. And a lot of people are like, yeah, the universe had a beginning. Matthew, the Big Bang. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, the Big Bang is just another domino. What was the domino before the Big Bang? You know? That's you have to have a starting place. You have to have a starting place. And if you don't have a starting place, nothing can actually happen. I find that incredibly, incredibly compelling. Okay, sorry. I'm still walking. I really hope I don't have to keep pausing randomly. If you might not notice it. I was gone for quite a while, but I'm back. Maybe just a few seconds for you guys. Okay. So, I think so far I've shown that hey, just take these if it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, I hope it does. But I think I've shown that from an atheist perspective, with only the material world, I think you're hard pressed on morality. I think you're hard pressed on having a purpose or meaning to life. I think it's hard to explain reason and reasoning being consistent and reliable. And I think you can explain free will. Do I actually have free will? Now some people will admit that you don't. They'll say no, of course you don't. I'm really trying to appeal to whoever's listening, to you. You think about it. Do you have free will? I'm pretty sure you do. I think you make choices all the time, and you make choices because of your beliefs that you believe you've reasoned into, because your reasoning is also something you can trust. It's not perfect, but I think there is truth, knowable truth, and you can reason to some of those things. Now, hopefully we've come to a point that says, okay, I think it's really hard to explain those things. What's your alternative, Matthew? Well, my alternative is that there's God. I think God explained these things very well, because we need something that, like I mentioned previously, with the universe not being able to always exist, that means time had to stop. Time had to be that first domino. There had to be a first moment. Well, if time started, and everything material-wise came from previous thing, what started it all? So you have to have something that's outside of time. And if it's literally making matter. Sorry, a lot of talking. Need to get a drink. it makes sense that it's not matter itself. It's something greater than it that's creating matter. I think that makes sense. So something outside of time, outside of matter, and it made the material universe and all space, so it has to be outside of, space. I still think that's matter. It just has to be outside of creation, the physical universe. That sounds like God to me. I would ask you, with everything we've demonstrated, if you're struggling with the points I brought up, what explanation do you have that accounts for them? I think God is the answer. And hopefully now we've all come to a point where, like, okay, I don't know how to reconcile the way the reality appears to be without God. Well, which God is it though? Can I even know that? Hey guys, sorry about this. I totally ran out of time. So I cut this short, and this will be a part 1, and I'll make a part 2 that covers the other 2 points later.